War in the Middle East is heating up, but could the US have prevented this escalation? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Well, folks, aren't you glad that we live in such interesting times? Who needs peace and quiet when you can constantly worry about World War III kicking off? So Iran is at it again. It has set the skies literally aflame by launching missiles at Israel. When Adele sang "Set Fire to the Rain," this isn't what she meant. And don't pretend the mullahs aren't big Adele fans. For this round, Iran launched around 200 missiles in its attack on Tuesday. And in the typical fashion of the Iranian regime, it seems they did this without clearing the skies of normal civilian traffic. I mean, people could even see the missiles launched from Iran while riding commercial airlines. I haven't seen anything that terrifying on a plane since my last Boeing flight. Thank goodness Iran has finally learned from shooting down a commercial Ukrainian airliner a few years back. Now it seems Iran is reaching for the old playbook, as this is a near repeat of its attack in April. Back then, Iran launched over 300 missiles and drones in retaliation for Israel bombing a diplomatic compound in Syria, which killed a top commander and others. But this time things are getting real hot and escalating quickly, because apparently that last attack was too low-key. Why would Iran attack Israel again? I mean, besides out of pure hatred? Well, this was in response to Israel launching a ground operation in southern Lebanon. It's part of an offensive codenamed Operation Northern Arrow, meant to clear out Hezbollah's military infrastructure. This marks the first time since the 2006 Lebanon war that Israel has had boots on the ground there. But things have already been headed in that direction for quite some time now. For almost a year since the October 7th attack on Israel, Hezbollah has been launching constant attacks in solidarity with Hamas, escalating tensions in the region. Terrorists gotta stick together. And after a year of those attacks, Israel finally had enough. So last month, in a Trojan horse operation, Israel struck Hezbollah agents with a mass series of pager explosions, because they're apparently susceptible to items from the 80s. What's next? Is Israel going to attack with exploding VCRs and Mr. T's? Israel then conducted missile strikes that took down much of Hezbollah's senior leadership, including Hezbollah's leader. And since Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy, Iran vowed vengeance after the assassination. Now you would think dismantling one of the most dangerous terrorist organizations in the world would be a good thing. Hezbollah has killed Americans, like the 1983 attack on a U.S. Marines barracks in Beirut, where almost 250 soldiers were killed. And Hezbollah doesn't treat Muslim countries any better. Hezbollah played a major role in the Syrian civil war, which involved sexual slavery and other crimes against Syrians. But to many in the West, Israel is to blame for making things worse. So whenever Israel retaliates against the likes of Hamas and Hezbollah, the U.S. urges restraint on Israel's part, calls for a ceasefire to end the war, and tells Israel not to attack places like Rafah, and to avoid going into southern Lebanon to root out terrorists. So why is the U.S. putting pressure on Israel, its closest ally in the region? Well, part of it has to do with civilian casualties, though getting accurate numbers is difficult. Though the Biden administration didn't seem to care too much about that until after protests against them broke out, with Joe Biden being called Genocide Joe. I mean, it's an election year. No matter what side you're on, it's impossible to deny civilian casualties have been really piling up. Biden himself claims that a diplomatic solution remains the only path to lasting security, because when it comes to atrocities committed by Hamas or Hezbollah, it seems like their mindset is, what's done is done, time to shake hands and move on. Surely the terrorist organization can be trusted to keep the peace. Biden's idea of a diplomatic solution seems to be engagement simply for the sake of engagement. But it's not just Biden. A lot of U.S. foreign policymakers have it in their heads that you need to keep promoting engagement and dialogue in order to manage risk. They believe that this approach to international relations keeps things from getting worse, even if it means looking past bad behavior from aggressive bullies, and probably bad future behavior as well. But you'd have to be blind to not see time and time again how that line of thinking ends up focusing on appeasing aggressors at the expense of the countries being attacked. This would be like seeing someone getting stabbed, then rushing up to the attacker and saying, "Are you okay? Did you have a rough childhood?" Actually, that's not far off from how California handles its crime. Unfortunately, this is nothing new for the U.S. We saw this clearly play out under the Obama administration with the way it handled China in the South China Sea. As you probably know, China has been wanting to claim the entire South China Sea as its own. The Scarborough Shoal, which falls under Philippine jurisdiction, became a point of contention and escalation between China and the Philippines in April of 2012. Both countries had vessels at the shoal, and as tensions grew, the U.S. wanted a de-escalation. It ended up brokering an agreement in which both sides would withdraw. And while the Philippines complied with the agreement, China did not. So what did the U.S. do? Did it sanction China or send in reinforcements to aid the Philippines? Nope. It feared escalating conflict with China, so it did nothing. Fortunately, China was satisfied with just that, and they never did anything wrong ever again. Of course, I'm joking. To this day, China has control over the shoal and has been militarizing islands in the area. And guess what? China continues to become more aggressive in Filipino waters, hosing Filipino ships and attacking them with knives and axes. So in its effort to de-escalate the situation, the U.S. actually made things much worse between China and the Philippines, actually increasing tensions. And the U.S. did this with Hezbollah as well. The Obama administration also let Hezbollah off the hook from major repercussions. Under Project Cassandra, which began in 2008, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration uncovered Hezbollah's illicit networks for drug and weapons trafficking, money laundering, and other criminal activities. This initiative was a way for the U.S. to dismantle Hezbollah's financial networks and deprive the organization of funding. But when Project Cassandra leaders sought approval for some significant investigations, prosecutions, arrests, and financial sanctions, officials at the Justice and Treasury Departments delayed, hindered, or rejected their requests. So wait, the U.S. had a chance of dealing a serious blow to Hezbollah's operations, but it didn't? Why? Well, the Obama administration was so fixated on reaching the Iran nuclear deal that it didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize it, including defunding a terrorist organization. But don't worry, it's not like Hezbollah or Iran would do anything unhinged. Just think, had Operation Cassandra gone as planned without Obama's interference, there's a good chance that what's going on right now wouldn't be happening. Thank goodness Biden was part of the Obama administration because he's now repeating some of the same mistakes Obama made. If only he repeated a less costly mistake, like wearing a tan suit. With regards to the war in Ukraine, Biden is also holding back amidst fear of escalation. To this day, despite clear evidence that the likes of Iran and China are providing lethal aid to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Biden administration has been hesitant to apply sanctions on them, thanks in part to fear of losing engagement. Seeing as de-escalation didn't work in the South China Sea or with Hezbollah, the plan was to continue the same tactic with the war in Ukraine? How's that been working out for the Ukrainians? Are we any closer to ending the war? See, pro-engagement advocates believe that calling out bad behavior and hitting back will destroy chances of negotiation and thus lead the world into an endless cycle of escalation and violence. But for some mind-boggling reason, what pro-engagers don't realize is that they end up helping the likes of China and Russia and Iran and Hezbollah feel emboldened and become more dangerous. Thank you for watching America Uncovered. And before YouTube's algorithm sends you off to some random video, click here to see a video I made on my new gaming channel about why Japan is cooler than China. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.